It was the summer of 1987, a time before cell phones, before social media, when kids still gathered in parking lots, talked face-to-face, and chased freedom down dirt roads. But in Saline County, Arkansas, that summer would end in tragedy, a mystery that still haunts the area nearly 4 decades later. 2 teenage boys went out one night and never came home. Their deaths would ignite a storm of controversy, challenge the integrity of state officials, and uncover a darker truth lingering beneath the quiet surface of this small southern community. This is the story of Kevin Ives and Don Henry. Hello friends, my name is Marcia, and this is Midwest Murders. In 1987, Saline County was a semi-rural county located just southwest of Little Rock. Though part of the greater central Arkansas metro area, it maintained much of its small-town atmosphere. Church steeples on the horizon, kids riding bikes down the gravel roads, and families gathering at local diners and high school football games. But beneath the surface, the county, like much of Arkansas in the late 1980s, was facing significant social, economic, and political pressures. By 1987, the war on drugs was in full force across the United States. Drug activity had quietly made its way into smaller towns and rural counties, including Saline County. Reports during this time documented a tremendous drug problem, one that local law enforcement struggled to manage, and which some alleged was being ignored, or even worse, protected. This drug activity wasn't just marijuana or pills. It was connected to larger-scale drug trafficking operations, with whispers of shipments coming through rural railways, small airstrips, and backwoods roads. In such a close-knit community, this bred fear, suspicion, and a deep distrust of local authorities. At the state level, Governor Bill Clinton was in office and facing political heat over a number of issues, including the functioning and credibility of the Arkansas State Crime Lab and Medical Examiner's Office, both of which were called into question due to a string of botched autopsies, including that of Kevin and Don. Dr. Fahmy Malik, the embattled state medical examiner, was under scrutiny for not only his conclusion in this case, but also his handling of others. His continued role fueled public concern that state institutions were being protected at the expense of justice. It was against this backdrop that 2 teenage boys would set out on a nighttime adventure and never return home. Larry Kevin Ives was 17 years old and a senior at Bryant High School. He was a good student, well liked by teachers and classmates, and spent his free time water skiing and enjoying Arkansas's natural beauty. His mother, Linda, would later become a powerful voice for justice. Don George Henry, 16, was also a senior at Bryant, and he was the kind of kid who made people laugh. His parents, Curtis and Marvell, described him as a natural comedian who loved the outdoors. He and Kevin were close friends, and like many boys their age, were chasing adventure. On August 22, 1987, Kevin and Don spent the evening with friends at a local commuter parking lot on the outskirts of Little Rock, a well-known hangout spot for teens. Around midnight, they headed to Don's home to ask permission to go night hunting, an illegal but fairly common practice among teenage boys. They left Don's house around 12:30 a.m. with Don's .22 caliber rifle and his father's spotlight, standard equipment for night hunting. Their usual spot was along the railroad tracks behind Don's house, about a mile from where they would later be struck by a train. At 4:25 a.m., a 75-car, 3-engine Union Pacific freight train, traveling 52 miles an hour on its normal run from Shreveport, Louisiana, to the Union Pacific Freight Yard in North Little Rock, struck Kevin and Don near the Crooked Creek Trestle, about half a mile from Shoby Road. The train crew, conductor Jerry Tomlin, engineer Stephen Schroyer, and brakeman Danny DeLamar, reported that the boys were lying side by side on the tracks, covered from the waist down with a light green tarp. The crew had spotted the boys about 300 yards before impact and blared the emergency horn. Despite the crew's attempts to alert them, neither boy moved. Dr. Fahmy Malik ruled the deaths accidental, claiming the boys had smoked marijuana, fallen asleep on the tracks, and were tragically hit by the train. But something didn't sit right. From the beginning, the investigation was marred by inconsistencies and questionable omissions. Evidence was overlooked. The boys' clothing and Don's rifle were not initially tested. A paramedic who responded to the scene and saw 3 men in a pickup truck nearby was never questioned by police. The green tarp was not recovered, even though the train conductor saw it lying beside the creek and pointed it out to a deputy. Friends admitted the boys had smoked a little marijuana earlier in the night, but they weren't heavy drug users. The idea that they would simply fall asleep on the tracks seemed absurd to those who knew them. Don was buried at Macedonia Baptist Church Cemetery. Kevin was laid to rest at Pinecrest Memorial Park in Alexander, but peace wouldn't come for either family. Deputy Prosecutor Richard Garrett later stated he believed the boys had seen something they shouldn't have, likely related to drugs. His words echoed a growing concern in Saline County that these deaths were no accident, but rather a cover-up tied to a larger criminal operation. Garrett, too, believed there was a cover-up, either inadvertent through lack of attention or just plain stubbornness when the investigation first got started. In March 1988, the boys' bodies were exhumed for a second autopsy. Dr. Joe Burton, a respected forensic pathologist from Atlanta, found a stab wound in Don's back and injuries to Kevin's face consistent with being struck by a rifle butt. He concluded the boys had not smoked enough marijuana to have passed out. A month later, in April 1988, a grand jury ruled the deaths a homicide and confirmed what many suspected. Saline County was struggling under the weight of a significant drug problem. Yet the report couldn't include the medical examiner's testimony because Dr. Malik refused to give permission. After the grand jury's report, Circuit Judge John Cole stated, "This was an investigation that cried out to be made, not only for the benefit of the parents of these two boys, but also for the rest of the people in Saline County." State Crime Lab Chief Jim Clark suggested to Dr. Malik that he consider other options in light of a steady stream of criticism about his job performance. Disputes over his findings in several cases prompted Crime Lab employees to double-check his work. While not removing Dr. Malik from his position, then-Governor Bill Clinton reestablished the Crime Lab Board to oversee and control the state medical examiner's office. To this day, the deaths of Kevin Ives and Don Henry remain officially unsolved. Rumors and theories have run rampant through the years. Some say the boys tried to rip off a large cocaine dealer. Others believe they were silenced after witnessing a police-protected drug drop. While any of this is possible, when I look at this case, the evidence, the inconsistencies, and the courage of two families who never stopped asking questions, I'm inclined to believe the theory put forth by Deputy Prosecutor Richard Garrett. These were just two teenage boys out for a good time who stumbled into something bigger than they could have imagined. Investigative journalist Mara Leverett has taken a deep dive into this case in her book, The Boys on the Tracks: Death, Denial, and a Mother's Crusade to Bring Her Son's Killers to Justice. I've linked it in the description below if you're interested. In 1987, Saline County, Arkansas was a place at a crossroads. Beautiful and rural on the surface, but hiding an undercurrent of corruption and drugs that many chose not to see. Kevin and Don may have seen too much, and that may have cost them their lives. Their story is a reminder. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes justice takes time. And sometimes it's up to us to keep asking the hard questions, even when the answers are uncomfortable. The truth is still out there, just beyond the reach of justice. If you have any thoughts or theories about this case, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.